What's up, friends? It's me and all my monsters back again for another chapter of Philomania. Today, we've got an unboxing of a brand new companion that just made its way from the United States, shipped all the way here to Lima, Peru through USPS. Now, let's dive right into the package. At first glance, there's not much inside the box, though. I do see a small note tucked in. Let's take a look. Ah, yes, this knife comes from an American company called Three Rivers Manufacturing, or TRM for short. The model? This is their brand new Bulldog, Revision B. One of the standout features of this version is the locking mechanism, TRM's River Lock. For those familiar with Benchmade, think of it as their take on the famous Axis Lock, a reliable ambidextrous system that's become very popular among knife users. Add to that the fact that it's built with 3 demilled titanium scales, and you've already got something that feels premium right out of the gate. This is a knife I've been waiting for quite some time, and it's been extremely well received by collectors in the US. Let's check what else comes in the box. Okay, here's a small TRM sticker and a warranty card with customer service info. Pretty straightforward. The packaging itself is very simple, no frills. The knife rests in a protective foam cutout that keeps it snug, with an additional layer of padding beneath. Nothing fancy, but it does the job. Now to the good part, the knife itself. And look at this, the blade is marked extremely sharp. And they're not kidding. Oh la la, that's exactly the kind of edge I expect from TRM. Right away, the first thing you notice is how refined it feels in hand. Every contour is smoothed out, every edge of the titanium scales carefully rounded. When the knife is closed and resting in your palm, it doesn't bite or dig into your hand, it feels deliberately shaped to sit comfortably, almost as if it were custom fitted for a closed grip. And yes, you can feel it right away. The handle is extremely comfortable. There are no sharp corners, no hot spots, nothing that pokes or digs into your hand when the knife is closed. That's already a big win because many knives, even premium ones, can feel awkward or uncomfortable in a closed grip. With this one, the ergonomics are spot on right from the start. All right, let's move straight to the action. First impressions when opening it. The deployment feels fast, snappy, and very effective. The blade fires out with ease, no hesitation. Now, you can open it with the thumb. It's not difficult, but that motion tends to be slower and more deliberate. It's a controlled opening rather than a lightning fast one. If you want speed, the spide-eye flick is the way to go. Using your index or middle finger to snap the blade open gives you a much quicker, more satisfying deployment. The thumb works, yes, but it feels more deliberate, less fidget-friendly. And this is where, as a collector, I start to miss having a dedicated thumb stud. Not because the knife needs it, the design works fine without one, but simply because I'm so used to having it on other knives. A thumb stud often gives you that instant, intuitive flickability. Here, the designer's choice was clearly intentional. Keep it clean, keep it simple, rely on the deployment hole. So don't get me wrong, it's not a flaw, just a design philosophy. And honestly, after 10 or 15 minutes of playing with the action, you get completely used to it. The river lock system and the deployment hole work together smoothly, and the action becomes second nature before long. As you can see here, deployment is really simple. TRM calls this their river lock, which is basically their take on what most people know as an axis lock. In more general terms, it's a type of lock bar mechanism. The idea is straightforward. There are 2 springs that push against the lock bar, and when you pull down on both sides simultaneously, the lock disengages. That allows the blade to swing freely. So when you open the knife, the moment the blade snaps into position, the lock bar automatically engages and secures it in place. And when you pull it down again, the blade closes almost by itself, smooth, safe, and extremely convenient. Now, let's take it piece by piece, because there's a lot to talk about with this knife. First, the blade profile. This is a drop point. Classic, versatile, and always reliable. The finish is a stonewash, but not a bright or glossy one. It leans more toward a matte tone. It does have a bit of reflection, but compared to other stonewash finishes that look shinier or almost polished, this one keeps things understated. The spine of the blade is slightly contoured, which makes a big difference in comfort. Some knives leave the spine with hard 90-degree angles, and that can feel aggressive on the thumb during extended use. Here, TRM softened it just enough so it feels smoother to the touch without compromising performance. And finally, the grind. This is a flat grind. That means the blade starts at its full stock thickness and then gradually tapers down in a straight line until it reaches the edge. The result is a clean, consistent geometry that balances durability with good slicing ability. When we say this blade has a flat grind, what we mean is simple. From this line here all the way down to the cutting edge, the grind is completely flat and consistent. There are no secondary angles, no thicker or thinner sections. It's a clean, regular geometry that runs evenly from top to bottom. A straightforward design, but one that's highly effective. The blade steel here is CPM 20 CV, a true premium steel. It's not the newest alloy on the market anymore, but it's still considered a classic among modern super steels. What you get with 20 CV is outstanding corrosion resistance, very good edge retention, and a level of hardness that makes it a reliable choice for high-end cutlery. It's easy enough to sharpen when needed, yet tough enough to handle everyday use without rolling or dulling quickly. Another detail worth highlighting, the blade is stamped with TRM USA. That tells you this knife is built entirely in the United States. Now, of course, quality doesn't belong to any single country, but having full US production does signal that you're getting a high level of precision and consistency. TRM is known for their tight tolerances, and this is part of what sets them apart. Now, let's talk about the titanium scales. The milling pattern here is gorgeous. At first glance, it almost looks like snakeskin, a series of repeating organic curves. Depending on how the light hits, it can also remind you of sun rays spreading outward, or even of those ancient Egyptian winged motifs you see in old artwork. It has that kind of layered, textured beauty. Whatever interpretation you prefer, the result is stunning. The milling not only adds grip, but also elevates the knife into something that feels artistic while still being functional. What's really striking here is how the milling shifts across the handle. It starts with almost imperceptible microcuts, tiny, subtle details, and then gradually transitions into larger, more pronounced patterns as you move along the scales. This progression not only looks visually dynamic, it also adds a practical element. The alternating ridges and valleys create natural grip points, preventing the knife from feeling slippery the way a plain, but flat slab of titanium often can. Yes, the scales are titanium, and they're perfectly contoured using what TRM calls 3D laser machining. This process allows for incredibly precise shaping, with recessed areas and raised details that feel almost sculpted. It's not rough or uneven in the slightest, nothing like clay or a cast mold. Instead, it's crisp, sharp machining that delivers clean edges and smooth transitions. The result is a handle that feels organic yet refined, with a finish that speaks to high craftsmanship. Now, in terms of build quality, the tolerances are excellent. There's absolutely no blade play, none forward, none backward, none side to side. That tells you this knife was cut and assembled with precision down to the millimeter. And as you'd expect from TRM, the blade sits perfectly centered between the scales when closed. These are the hallmarks of premium engineering. As for the pocket clip, it's one of those details you almost forget is there. In the hand, it practically disappears. You don't feel any hot spots or pressure from it. Functionally, it's on the softer side compared to other clips. By that I mean, it doesn't clamp down as aggressively on the pocket. Personally, I might have preferred a touch more tension, but overall, it falls into the category of a light to medium retention clip. It holds the knife securely enough, but it's not overly tight, so you can draw it quickly without a struggle. That softer clip tension actually makes it easier to slide the knife into your pocket. When you clip it in, all you see is a very low profile, just the tiniest bit of the clip peeking out above the pocket. It's discreet, subtle, and exactly what you want for everyday carry. The finish of the clip itself is also worth noting. It's got a stone-washed titanium finish, which pairs beautifully with the rest of the knife. It's not mirror polished, so it doesn't scream for attention, and it won't pick up fingerprints, sweat, or pocket grease the way a glossy surface would. Instead, it reflects light just enough to create a bit of contrast against the brighter parts of the handle. The effect is elegant and understated. The clip doesn't try to be the star of the show, it simply complements the overall design language of the knife. Now, moving to the pivot system. This one is single-sided. On one end, you've got a female sleeve, and on the other, a Torx T10 male screw that threads into it. Simple, functional, and secure. Looking across the frame, you'll notice the knife is held together by 3 body screws plus the 2 screws for the pocket clip. Those are the ones you'd remove if you want to take the scales off for cleaning or to swap them for another set. Here's the clever part. With the Bulldog Rev B, you don't need to mess with the pivot assembly when you remove the scales, no need to pull the blade, no need to disturb the action. The pivot stays intact, the washers stay in place, and you can change the scales without doing a full disassembly. That's a huge plus compared to many other knives. And speaking of the action, this model uses caged ball bearings. That means the bearings are enclosed in a track or cage, which keeps them evenly spaced and prevents them from scattering during maintenance. It's a modern, clean, and efficient system that results in smoother deployment and easier upkeep. And that's exactly why the action feels so fluid when you flip it open. Those caged bearings make deployment smooth and consistent every single time. Now, going back to the scales, here's one of the Bulldog's standout features. TRM designed a system where you can swap out the scales by removing just a few screws. You don't need to mess with the backspacer, the river lock, or the springs inside the locking system. Normally, if you take apart a knife with a bar lock design, reassembly can be tricky getting the springs in the right place, making sure everything is lined up, and then hoping the blade still sits centered. It's not impossible, but for beginners it can be frustrating, and even for experienced collectors it takes time. With this system, TRM makes it much easier. You can take the scales off, put on a new set, and the knife stays fully functional without losing its smooth action or its blade centering. It's a very innovative solution, especially for people who might be new to the hobby or who just want the option of customizing their knife without doing a full teardown. Now, in my case, I actually enjoy taking knives completely apart. I like cleaning, lubricating, and reassembling them from scratch. So this shortcut isn't necessarily for me. But for a lot of users, it's a real advantage. That said, with this particular knife, I honestly don't see much reason to change the scales at all. These titanium handles are gorgeous. They're the latest version TRM is offering, and they look and feel fantastic in hand. Is essentially a refined update to the earlier Bulldog, incorporating tweaks and improvements based on user feedback. Now let's talk about the actual updates in this Rev B version. The first and most obvious change compared to the earlier Bulldog is right here on the blade, the deployment hole. On the previous model, it was noticeably smaller, and that led a lot of collectors and everyday users to say, "Hey Trom, this knife is fantastic, but it would be so much more practical if the hole were just a bit larger. Give us more room for the fingers so we can flick it open more reliably." TRM listened, and here in the Rev B, the hole has been enlarged to exactly what the community asked for. That deserves applause, because honestly, this is what more knife companies should be doing. No design is perfect the first time around. Improvement comes from listening to your customers and applying real-world feedback. TRM did that, and the result is a better knife. The second major improvement is in the river lock bar. On the earlier version, the bar ends were a little harsh, functional, but sharp enough to cause some fatigue over time. With the Rev B, TRM rounded and contoured those contact points. You can see here they now have a smoother, tiered design that feels far more comfortable under your fingers. The edges don't dig in, they don't feel abrasive, and the overall interaction is just more pleasant. This may sound like a small tweak, but it makes a big difference in everyday use. A knife of this quality should never feel fatiguing or frustrating in hand. It should invite you to keep using it, to enjoy carrying it, and to appreciate the premium feel that matches the premium price. And with these revisions, that's exactly what the Bulldog Rev B delivers. What else can I say? The contouring is one of the things I enjoy most about this knife, and I know most collectors feel the same. By contouring, I mean the way every edge and corner of the scales has been rounded off. No sharp spots, no harsh angles, nothing that pushes back against your hand as if to say, "Don't touch me." Instead, this knife feels inviting. It practically asks to be handled. That's what you want in a premium design, comfort that encourages you to use it again and again. Now, let's talk about the choil. Right here, you've got a finger choil that comfortably allows you to choke up on the blade. You can set your index finger in there, giving you a grip that's both more aggressive and more controlled. It adds leverage for harder cuts and lets you apply force more precisely. Of course, you still have the option of gripping it further back. In my hands, which are just slightly larger than average, I can get all 4 fingers on the handle with the pinky still supported. Meanwhile, the thumb rests naturally along the spine of the blade. That combination gives you 2 solid grip options, one choked up for power and control, the other further back for reach and comfort. If I had to nitpick, the one thing I find myself wishing for here is a bit of jimping on the spine. A few textured notches would give the thumb extra traction and prevent any chance of slipping. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it's one of those small details that can make a good knife feel even more dialed in. Now, I won't insist too much on the lack of jimping because honestly, it's not something I've really missed. With your index finger resting in the choil, you already get a grip that's strong and secure enough that extra traction isn't absolutely necessary. That said, it's important to recognize what this knife is and what it isn't. If you're looking for a tool to spend all day cutting, prying, or doing heavy-duty work under tough conditions, this is not that knife. The Bulldog B isn't designed as a hard-use workhorse. What it is, instead, is an elegant everyday carry knife, a high-quality tool that's perfectly suited for urban carry, for utility tasks, and for any reasonable EDC role you choose to give it. It's a luxury tool, a refined piece meant to be appreciated not only for its function, but also for its design and craftsmanship. A knife to use, yes, but also to admire. Moving to the back of the knife, we find the backspacer. Here, it's finished in black, and I can say with confidence that this is carbon fiber. The choice makes sense. Carbon fiber keeps the overall weight down, which is critical in a knife designed to be comfortable in the pocket. Speaking of weight, let's put it on the scale. It comes in at 4.5 ounces, or about 128 grams. That puts it right in the sweet spot for EDC. Not too heavy, not too light solid enough to feel substantial, but still easy to carry all day without noticing it in your pocket. So how does the weight feel in practice? I'd call it slightly above average, but still very much in the portable category. It's not ultralight, but it's also not a burden. You'll notice the knife is in your pocket. You won't forget it's there, but it doesn't drag you down or feel like you're hauling around a heavy tool, like pliers or some other bulky piece of gear. At 4.5 ounces, it sits right in that comfortable mid-range you'd expect from a modern EDC. Now, if I had to point out something negative, something I've noticed that could be considered a drawback, it would be this. From time to time, I feel a bit of lock stick in the river lock system. For those who don't know, lock stick is when the lock bar feels like it's sticking slightly as you disengage it. On this knife, it's very subtle. Every now and then, you'll notice that the bar clings a bit and requires just a touch more force to pull down. But let me be clear, this is not the kind of aggressive lock stick that becomes a real issue. I've owned knives where the lock stick was so bad you practically had to dig your nails into the bar, pressing so hard that your fingers hurt or even left marks. That's when it becomes unacceptable. Here, it's nothing like that. It's mild, intermittent, and not enough to affect usability. More of a quirk than a flaw. Now, does that minor lock stick point to a flaw in the tolerances, something that would require warranty service? Honestly, no. At least not in this case. Like I said, it only shows up occasionally. For example, right now I don't feel it at all. But if I snap the blade open with a lot of force, then yes, you can sense a little extra resistance when disengaging the river lock. You just need to press slightly harder than usual. When the blade is open gently, the issue completely disappears. The action feels perfectly normal, with no extra effort beyond what the springs already provide. It's really only when you slam it open hard that the lock bar sticks a touch more than expected. This is something I believe will fade naturally with use. As the knife breaks in, the surfaces wear together and the mechanics settle into their intended tolerances. That's why I don't consider it a serious issue, just part of the normal break-in process you sometimes see with new knives. Aside from that, I have nothing negative to say. The Bulldog Rev B is an outstanding knife, premium in every sense. It combines a bold, aggressive aesthetic with real-world utility thanks to its drop-point blade shape. It's comfortable, ergonomic, elegant, and discreet. But beyond pure function, it's also a knife that begs to be admired. The attention to detail, the way it feels in hand, the precision of the engineering, it all shows the passion and effort that went into designing and building it. When you hold it, you know you're handling a piece that took time, care, and craftsmanship to bring to life. And that's the beauty of it. You can tell this is a mechanical design that simply works. Flawless in execution. Bravo, TRM! You took an already beloved model, the original Bulldog, praised by reviewers and collectors, and delivered a smarter, cleaner Rev B. I honestly have nothing but congratulations and gratitude for a company that keeps listening, refining, and improving its products. This has been a really fun unboxing, exactly the kind I enjoy. Long, detailed, and full of first impressions. I've been dreaming about this TRM Bulldog Rev B for a while, and now that it's finally in hand, the next step is clear. Carry it, use it, and test it. After some solid time in pocket and real tasks, I'll come back with a full review how it cuts, how it rides, how it holds up day after day. That's all for today, friends. A longer unboxing than usual, just how I like it, because first impressions deserve time. From me and all my monsters, thank you for sticking with me to the end. Wishing you an excellent week, and I'll see you very soon in another Philomania chapter. Take care. Ciao.